Kia ora, and welcome to yet another episode of my videos, which talk about opportunities in New Zealand. My name is Arun Jacob, and I'm your friendly and frank licensed New Zealand immigration advisor. I love to give information about coming to New Zealand and exploring all the opportunities this country presents. My company and my wonderful team, we essentially work in two main areas. We work in the areas of creating education opportunities for international students to come and study in New Zealand, and some of them eventually pathway into residency. And we also work with people who get the required number of points to be able to make a direct skilled migrant category application to New Zealand and come and live here and make this their new home. Now, one of the most primary questions that people ask me before they decide upon coming to New Zealand and wanting to make this their new home is about the prospects of education for their children. In fact, a lot of clients that I speak to, especially from the skilled migrant category kind of client, I think top of their head is what kind of a future their children are going to have here in New Zealand, and without fail, a lot of them ask me and my team what are the facilities available for the children to study here and kind of settle down here. Now, international students who come here with the intention of studying and getting their work visa and eventually hopefully translating into work and moving on into residency obviously also have it at the back of their mind somewhere in terms of what kind of a future their family will have. It may be a few years down the line that they will get married and have children, and but it's somewhere there at the back of their mind that they will have children, and so they want to figure out what kind of facilities in terms of education are available for them. It is a key characteristic feature of migrants everywhere in the world anyway, that they do tend to focus a lot on the children, because a lot of them actually say things like, this is not so much for myself and my wife or myself and my husband, but it is more about the children and about giving them a better future. So with all that emphasis on children and their education and their well-being, I thought I will make a video about what kind of opportunities are available for children in this country, in New Zealand, especially in terms of the education facilities. Now, in New Zealand, we have three kinds of schools that are around us here in our society. The first one is called the state school, which, as the name indicates, is owned by the state. It's a government school. The second one is called the state integrated school, which is not fully owned by the government, but supported by the government. And these state integrated schools are a cross between a private school and a state school, sort of. It's kind of a hybrid between the two. And then there is the third kind of a school, which is the private school, which, as the name indicates, is private, and it maintains its own charter, and of course it does work under the Ministry of Education guidelines, but it is a private school. Now, the state integrated school is, as I told you, is an interesting hybrid. My kids actually go to a state integrated school, which kind of encompasses the components of the state kind of a school as well as the private kind of a school as well. So the school where my kids go to, being a state integrated school, it is actually a Catholic school, and so they retain their identity as a Catholic institution, but they do adhere to the norms of the the government rules and regulations and policies and stuff like that. So what does it mean in terms of let's say cost, or the quality of education and so on and so forth? Quite honestly, the quality of education would be equal across all these different kinds of schools. I don't want to generalize it and say it. In that sense, obviously, in a private school where the fees is a lot higher, the facilities and the kind of exposure the children get is definitely much higher compared to some of the other schools. But overall, the standard of education is looked after in a holistic manner. There are checks and balances in place to ensure that whether it is a state school or a state integrated school or a private school, that the standards are maintained and that the outcomes for the students are being maintained. So you could quite happily send your children to a state school without batting an eyelid. the fees is a lot lesser as compared to the other two kinds of schools. The state integrated school is definitely higher in terms of fee as compared to a state school, but it's not as high as a private school is. And a private school is right at the end of the spectrum where the fees is quite high, and it could put quite a big hole into your pocket. But it will also provide you the kind of if you're looking for that little special elite kind of atmosphere for your child, a private school could be the option. The quality, as I told you, would be looked after quite nicely by the rules and regulations that are in place, whether it is a state integrated, or a private school. There is also something called the Decile ranking, and the Decile ranking, essentially also talks about the socio-economic composition of students in that particular school. So there is something called a Decile ranking, and there is a numbering given to that. The understanding is that the higher the Decile ranking, the higher is the socio-economic composition of the students and the parents of that particular school, and the lower the Decile ranking, the socioeconomic standing is a little lesser as compared to a school from a higher Decile. So there's other few things that you need to look at. The other thing that I would like to talk about schooling in New Zealand is that each school is got its zone around it. I mean, not the private and the state integrated so much, but the state schools have a zone around them. So if you happen to go and buy a house, or if you happen to go rent a house in a particular school zone, then by law your child will be admitted into that school. So your child gets automatic rights to enter that school. Now again, coming to the levels of schools, you have a primary school, and then you have the high schools. So the primary normally goes up to something called as year 8. And the high school goes on from year 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And after you finish year 13 is when students move on into the universities. So that's the way it is. And the year 9 and 10, I think, are also known as intermediate. So it's kind of the bridging between the primary to the real high school, where they're beginning to then take electives and kind of look at what particular passions and interests they have, and they're kind of moving in that particular direction. So that's the overall rough approximation of how the schooling system here in New Zealand works. So if you happen to be in a zone where a particular state school is, by law your child will need to be admitted into that particular school, and which is why some of the schools which have a higher Decile ranking, the rents in that particular area are a little higher, because everybody wants to be in that particular zone so that their child gets admission into that particular school. So the rents tend to be a little higher in a particular school zone. In fact, when people are selling or renting houses, they actually advertise and say it is in the much wanted school zone of A school or B school or C school. So people actually use it as a unique selling proposition to sell their properties or rent their properties. In the state integrated schools, like I told you, these are schools with special character, like a Catholic school, for instance. So if you happen to be from that particular community, like a Catholic community, or if there is a let's say some other particular community of people who've set up a state integrated school, and if you happen to be from that community, you get a preference over admission from other students. So that is one advantage of going to a state integrated school. And if you can really afford to go to a private school, you just need to approach them and pay the money and be able to get into that particular school. Admission time, brilliant. What I like about it is the fact that there is no admission date as such for any of these schools. So if you're migrating, whether it is in January or February or March or April or anywhere throughout the year, except when the schools are having a break for holidays, especially during December, January, when there is a long break. Except that times you could come in any month of the year, and your children will be able to get an entry into the school. So that is a big advantage. So you don't have to, because I know a lot of people coming from different countries tend to think that there is a set pattern, and that your child will get admission only if they go in a particular month. You can relax and take it easy. There is absolutely no necessity for you to lose sleep over that particular aspect. Otherwise, admissions are quite simple and straightforward. You go present your documents. You will need to prove that you're a resident, or your children have a student visa and they're eligible for domestic fees, and and then you'll be able to admit your child into the school by giving the necessary documents. If your child does not have a domestic student status, then you will be forced to pay international student fee, and that's a different subject in itself, which I don't want to cover in this particular video. But you can talk to us and write an email to us, or enter your details into our contact form, and we will come back to you about details about what is a domestic student, and how does your child get a domestic student status and stuff like that. If you're coming as a skilled migrant, your child will automatically get a domestic student status. If you're coming as an international student and you're trying to bring a child, we will need to examine to see if your child will get a domestic student status. But by and large, the government here is quite conducive to helping people to admit their children into schools, and ensure that kids also have continuing education when they come into New Zealand. It is illegal in New Zealand for children not to have education. Between particular ages, children are necessarily meant to be inside schools and be enrolled into schools, and that is the way it is. And besides the curriculum of the regular your math and your English and your sciences and so on and so forth, the schools have wonderful facilities in terms of sports and games, and there's a lot of emphasis on the physical aspects of development of the children. And I absolutely love the fact that my kids play volleyball and netball and gymnastics, and they're involved with all kinds of physical activities as well. And I absolutely love the colorful classrooms of the kids here, and I think overall the learning is quite brilliant. I think New Zealand education systems for children are also ranked very, very high globally. I can't quite recollect exactly which rankings they are, but I do believe that they have been acknowledged as some of the best education systems in the world. And from my own experience as a parent with children and schools here in New Zealand, two in primary and in one in high school, I see it's a friendly atmosphere, and it's all, everybody's mingling nicely, and everybody's helping each other, and there's some great camaraderie that develops amongst the students, and I do believe it's a very, very conducive atmosphere for children. So if you're one of those parents who are choosing to come to New Zealand with the primary intention of providing a good education system for your children, trust me, you will not go wrong on this particular aspect. And I talk about it from my first-hand experience, and that is why I'm also such a strong proponent of encouraging good quality people like yourself to come to New Zealand. So that's a synopsis of the kind of schooling opportunities that are available for children in New Zealand. And go ahead and make your decisions to come here. You will not go wrong if you choose New Zealand. I do believe it is one of the best countries on earth, and that's the reason my team and we promote it so passionately. But we promote it passionately and professionally only, also to the right set of clients. We are definitely not in the game to get every guy who talks to us somehow get them into the country. We are not in that game. I keep telling in all my videos, our priorities are to create a better New Zealand. That's number one. To help good quality clients to come into this country, to ensure that our employees are happy doing the work we do, and last is the profits of our organization. Those have been the primary pillars of our company and the primary priorities of our company, in that order: New Zealand, client, employee, and the profits of the company. And we will continue to do work with the same ethos and with the same belief system. Thank you for listening to my videos. Please post your comments below this video, and if there are any other topics that you want me to talk about, I'll be more than happy to make this videos. I'm actually beginning to enjoy making this videos, so hopefully I'll also give a better background than what I keep doing in all my videos all the time. But for the time being, this is all I have to offer. Hope you enjoyed that video, and I will talk to you again very soon on some other topic pertaining to New Zealand education and migration. Kia ora.